In the legal department, so it's over on 50 Broad. Thank you.
Thank you with that. Good evening. I think we had a new member or someone we haven't seen. So if you can just introduce yourself and. All right, thank you, Bonnie. Nice to see you. Hey, CM Bowden, nice to see you. So with that, we will get started and we will do an invocation. So I do want to also mention that invocation doesn't necessarily have to be a prayer. It could be a moment of silence. So in that spirit, I will handle the invocation this evening with a moment of silence. And thank you on that. Can I have a motion to approve our current agenda for this evening?
So moved.
That motion has been approved and properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Any nays? All right, and tonight's agenda is approved. We do have on the agenda a public comment period. Are there any folks in the audience that would like to speak? If so, feel free. I'm not going to have to figure out any minutes allocated because you're just one person. So feel free to take 2 minutes.
Oh, that's plenty. Hello, my name is Victoria Ray Boynton Moore. I attended the meeting last month, and so I'm here again to continue following the work of this commission. I'm a born and raised Charlestonian. I grew up West Ashley, where my mom still lives in our family home. I have a daughter, she's 3. And so for that reason, above all else, I have a deep personal interest in the future of this city. So thank you all for the work that you're here committed to doing. I also offer myself as an engaged citizen to be of service in any way that I can help support moving this work forward. Thank you.
Victoria. Thanks for joining us and feel free to hang out and stick around. Thank you for that. I'd also like a motion to approve minutes from the 7/21/22 meeting. Can I get a second? That motion was seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, that motion passes for approval of the minutes from the 7/21/22 meeting. We're moving quickly this evening. I do want to give Adrian Swinton some time to just kind of share an update. Co-chair Harris and I met with Adrian earlier in the week, and I believe a few of you have already had that meeting. I would strongly encourage you to set up a one-on-one meeting with Adrian, introduce yourself, and she will certainly share her thoughts on the position and kind of the work ahead. So Adrian, with that.
Thank you, Jason. So good evening, everyone. I onboarded on last Monday, August 8th. And after onboarding up until this point, I had a series of meetings with internal and external stakeholders. Some prioritizing items that I'm looking into is the monthly newsletter so that communication can be disseminated, and the visibility of our commission and the office that I'm holding on the city's website, just to make us visible to those in the community and internally, the internal employees. And equity workshops. So I'm looking forward to, looking into funds so that we can have some workshops for learning and education training opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. We did have on the previous agenda about a workshop that we were going to schedule. I don't see it on tonight's agenda, but I do want to have that discussion real quick, if possible, if the commission would entertain that. Perfect. We did talk about having that training on a Saturday. I just want to get a sense from you all if that's something that there's consensus around. That way we can give that guidance to Ms. Swinton, and we can work with the mayor and others to get that scheduled and paid for. So is there general consensus on the commission that a Saturday training would work? I got a thumbs up, thumbs up. All right, awesome. I think that's perfect. So hopefully that gives you some guidance, Adrian, in terms of when we can get that scheduled. And the goal would be to schedule a workshop and also invite our fellow council members to that workshop. if they're so inclined to show up on a Saturday. So thank you for indulging me on that. I'm going to turn it over to Co-Chair Harris on the rules and procedures work group discussion. Mr. Harris is leading that. We really want to try to get that finalized as we come back next month, so we can really start digging in. This is the third meeting, I believe, of HARC. We are moving methodically forward, but I want to make sure that we start digging into the work. So with that, Chairman Harris.
Good evening, everyone. The task force has so far circulated an outline to Stephen and Bob. Bob has responded. That outline we'll try and consolidate, share with Adrian, and have it a draft in circulation prior to our next meeting. Bob's comment, and Bob, I'll let you chime in as you see fit. He outlined what he thought was important in terms of kind of rules of behavior for amongst ourselves. What I emphasize, taking from the city council ordinance as it relates to meetings, agendas, calling special meetings, filling in the language that speaks to particularly special meetings, the formats, also order amongst ourselves in terms of the chairs acknowledging people speaking on things that we're debating for votes, making certain that individuals speak. Everybody gets an opportunity to speak before anybody gets a chance to speak again. Those sort of things, just to keep us kind of moving in order. One of the things that seems interesting to me, and when you get the draft, you'll see this, the city council has a rather detailed discussion about citizen participation, when folks sign up, how long they can speak, how to address, protocol again in terms of being respectful, in terms of communicating with the city, the members of the commission in this case. I think that's important again, so that we can project and understand it. One of the things that I think is also interesting, and we'll be discussing, we open the meeting, open with citizen participation. The 2-minute rule is a rule that kind of guides what the city council does. They allocate in their agenda 30 minutes for public comment. Whether we want to have a specific, we're proposing meeting for an hour and a half. That's our current schedule. Do we want to allocate 15 minutes, a minimum 15 minutes or half an hour for citizen participation, and whether or not we would relax those rules, say, for example, if we decide to have special meetings around particular topics. Those are the kind of things that I'm hoping that we can move forward with and adopt. And of course, these will be rules and guidelines that will probably have to pass muster with the city corporation council and clerk to make sure we're not violating any of the procedural rules that council or laws that are in place. But I think we should be able to circulate something, working with Adrian at least 2 weeks prior to our next meeting. And we'll ask you for homework. Give us feedback and comment we did not have a meeting. That's why you did not receive, there was not public posting. We decided to exchange the documents and work in this fashion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Co-Chairman Harris. So is the goal come back next meeting with something for us to react to and adopt?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. That would be great. Then we can actually, after that, kind of dig into the work a bit more. Is there anything else, Co-Chair Harris?
Not this time. We just ask either Councilman Bowden or Bob, who are members of the task force, also to comment if they'd like to.
Yes, Bob.
I'm just going to say that there's a lot of, Jerome's knowledge of existing documentation is a huge help, because there's a lot of stuff that basically we can just borrow from existing procedures that I think is going to make a lot of this very familiar to folks and should be pretty straightforward.
I agree. Thank you. Bonnie, you have a question?
That you all didn't meet, is there a way that I could join that committee? Or
Uh,
is it,
we'll add you to the documents that have been circulated already.
Okay.
We're going to forward those, all our comments to Adrian and ask her to create a document that will be circulated to the entire commission prior to the next meeting, where we'll be discussing and debating from almost as a committee of a whole to try to move forward.
okay. I would like to take a few minutes to talk about something then. And I'm going to start with a quote from James Baldwin. If I love you, I have to make you conscious of the things that you don't see. So the people of Charleston come before us to speak and also to listen, and we exist to serve them. Many of them are Christian, but some are also Jewish and Muslim, Hindu, humanist, atheist, and agnostic. Yet we start our meetings with an invocation that alienates our non-Christian citizens. Tradition dictates that in the city of Charleston, we invoke God, often the Christian God, before our meetings. But progress demands that we question Christian hegemony. Progress demands that we don't simply tolerate, but instead embrace our diversity. I realize that the idea that invocations are exclusive rather than inclusive might be a new and strange idea to you. Invocations, even non-denominational invocations, are essentially Christian. Let me explain. You know how often you can tell when something is written by a non-native speaker? Just this morning, I was reading an article about religious diversity in South Carolina, and where it described our culture, it said South America. While technically true, that's not how we would ever say it. I recently spoke to a community leader who's a rabbi. I asked him if non-denominational prayers are truly inclusive of Jewish people. He said often they're not. They're particularly churchy, even if they don't mention Jesus. If you're steeped in Christianity, as most of the Christian pastors who give invocations do, or in Christian culture as Christian lay people are, it would be really hard to give a truly non-denominational invocation. Do our non-denominational prayers ever call the name of God Allah? An invocation asks a higher power for assistance. There are no prayers inclusive of our fellow citizens who are non-religious or secular humanist. So I'd like you to consider that we don't have to start our meetings with an invocation. Thank you for listening intently.
Thank you, Bonnie. I think that's worthy of a discussion. I'm not sure if now is the time, but I mean, rules, co-chair, on the rules, that could be something that's discussed and maybe vetted out. I've always viewed, just my opinion, Bonnie, the invocation is a act of neutrality, whether it might be a moment of silence. We've had many invocations at City Council from our Jewish brethren, Councilman Appel. But to your point, I do understand that when you say the word God, that denotes a certain religion. I get that. Do you all want to have discussion? Because I think this is actually part of our work, why we're here. Any thoughts? No. Carol?
I view it as, we all have gods. It's just a matter of which God we serve. And to me, an opening invocation is simply the ability for anyone to do what they would like, not pay attention, listen, not listen, whatever. And I do not agree that it's something that is not taking care of diversity.
Right. Thank you, Carol. Councilman Seekings, you had. Anyone else? Bonnie? Carol? Anyone?
I would just like to point out that we don't all have gods, and that's part of my point.
Yeah. And that's a point well taken.
Although the only add I would make is that what is going to allow us to succeed is respect on all levels. With equality, there's, to me, a moment of silence is a moment of respect and inflection. And I think that's what we're going to be doing deeply here, is to reflect, think inward, think outward. And to me, having that moment of respect for all that we're trying to accomplish, and it's not talking to someone higher, because we're all talking to ourselves. I'm also a Christian, but to me, that's not what that part's about. It is about human respect and what we're trying to accomplish here, which is difficult. And it's very difficult. And it's tough to not alienate anyone. That's just a very, very complicated task. But if we enter into it with I loved your moment of silence, that allows us to take a deep breath, think about what we're trying to accomplish, and show respect for all those that we're trying to show deep respect for and make some very significant changes. That would be my
Thank you.
thought.
Carol?
To open our meetings. Yeah, yes, that makes a lot of sense to me on the basis of everything you just said, Sharon, and certainly the appeal that you put in front of us, Bonnie. I mean, when I moved here, it was, for me, it was just getting used to a Southern way of another tradition that, you know, I didn't grow up with. But I think what you're suggesting really does take away any of the exclusion out of it and brings us to a place where we all do need to have that so quiet moment to gather ourselves and get into the work of the heart. So I would.
Thank you,
Can we
Carol.
make a motion to send that forward to the, or do we need to?
I think
The rules chairman is listening.
yeah, I don't think we've listed out the rules essentially, that's which is part of what Jerry's working on. So I think, Jerry, you're taking note of this. I think it's worthy.
Absolutely. And the commissioner should know that Bonnie and I had a conversation previously. She expressed her concern. And I think the way in which we proceeded to open this meeting is reflective of our desire to be respectful and inclusive of everyone in building a sense of culture of collaboration. So certainly will be reflected in the draft coming forward. And thank you so much for the very thoughtful conversation.
Thank you, Co-Chair Harris. Or should I say Jerry? So one of the rules, one of the rules that we discussed early on was just calling us by our first names. So I keep forgetting because I was in community development where we don't do that. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you, Bonnie, for that. Thanks for the comments from everybody. Next on our agenda is the, yes, go ahead, Carol.
Place for this or not, but based on the minutes which I just reread and Robert's comments last time about, you know, being a couple of us being behind the eight ball because we haven't been at this for a year or more like many of you. I would like to request that we as a committee develop a clear list of deliverables with a timeline so that we can understand, okay, what is it we're actually trying to accomplish by when? I did a lot of this work in my as an employee of a major corporation in process development, and you know, for me, it would be something that would help guide us in terms of what is it that we're seeking to deliver by when. And so for me, that would be really helpful. And I think it would be for the entire group. And so I'd like to, I don't know if that, you know, requires a motion or just some discussion or what, but for me, that would be a really helpful thing for us to do as a group.
Thank you, Karen. I mean, I think we should discuss this because what I'd like to say is what we heard last meeting was we were moving too fast on the amount of resources So we tabled that whole idea of creating a schedule. That was based on Mr. Burrell, who I do want to say in full transparency has resigned from the commission. Based on the fact that this was going to be some work, and it is going to be some work. So we did disseminate a bunch of reading materials, and I'm not sure if y'all had a chance to dive into that, but we, based on last month's conversation, it was, to your point, Carol, we've got a lot of stuff that we haven't been privy to. We want to play catch up. I'm all for creating a schedule. I just want to make sure we're all comfortable on the documents that were shared, and are you comfortable with the sense of what's been accomplished? If you got up to speed on everything and you feel good about that, then heck yeah, let's move forward and create that schedule.
I mean, I agree with Carol completely that this is going to be crucial to our success. But the thing that worries me is trying to come up with a schedule with limited understanding of everything. I'd kind of like to see the first thing that happened be the workshop, because I think that's going to get a lot of us where we can actually be productive. Just my thought on that. I'd say it's going to be hard to do what you want without doing some baby steps first.
And I think the baby steps could be, Carol, you want to chime in? Feel free. I think there's a middle ground here. So before we get to the workshop, I mean, I'm looking at the special commission report right here. We can take next month and delve into that special commission report, recommendation by recommendation or section by section. I think that's going to help us catch up to speed, because to Carol's point, I don't want to wait till the workshop, because that could be 2 months from now. I think there's some work that we could be doing. We're all going to feel more comfortable as we progress. Carol.
I mean, that is essentially what I was going to say. I don't, until we have done our first assignment, which is to analyze the recommendations and be prepared to come to the council. And I don't think we should pressure ourselves, as we talked about last meeting, to, meet that 5-month deadline if we don't feel like we're prepared to make defensible, cogent recommendations back to the council. But until we've done that kind of background work, I don't see how we come up with a list of deliverables beyond that, because that really is the core of our foundational document that we have to take apart and put back together again. And I'm personally hoping that there's a lot of fruit that will come out of that. But we haven't discovered it as a body yet. So I don't see how we could deliver anything.
Carol, are you talking more of just some, not necessarily deliverables on the recommendations? I don't want to speak for you, but more of just like a roadmap.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I understand, and maybe I didn't mean that, okay, we can, maybe the way to think about it is, all right, what's the first thing we need to do? Right. Forget how long it's going to take. It might take 3 years, but is number one to take the report, the commission report, and go through it, 100 plus recommendations, et cetera. Is there a priority to how we want to look at those? That is what I was, thinking about. And I understand, in terms of, yes, you can't put a date on it, but let's talk about what's number one step we want to do, and the sub steps underneath that, and then second and third, so that we have a better idea of where to put our efforts as we move forward.
Makes sense. Bonnie?
I know that so much work has gone into these foundational documents, and I'm guessing there are a few people who understand it comprehensively, who might be able to come and speak to us and help us sort of live the document and understand it more than, just reading the words on a page. And so I don't know who those people might be, but I'm guessing some of you do.
You're probably looking at myself and Carol and Jerry. We're intimately involved in that process. But I think that leads to my point is I'm happy to spend and have a discussion focused solely on, for example, next month, economic empowerment recommendations, what those meant. I think that's going to be tremendously helpful to see where the commission is coming from. If we have time tonight and you all will entertain, I'm happy to even talk about a few of these. You'll see most of these are really practical, sound recommendations, particularly in economic empowerment. But I hear your concerns, and Carol, loud and clear, I think we can get that done. We're off to a slow start. We're making some progress, but I think what I mentioned, the very initial meeting, our inaugural meeting, was looking back at the special commission and looking at some of the missteps. I'm not going to go down that path, but Bonnie, I'm not sure if you were listening in or heard. I think we tried to do too much too fast because we had the political pressure. It was telling us that we needed to do it this way. And what I said is, let's put our blinders on. Let's focus on this group, and let's put a product together that we're all going to be proud of, and keep the noise out. And I think we can do that. Any other concerns regarding the rules and procedures? We're kind of moved on to the resources materials discussion. Thank you for the segue, Carol, on that. We all should just,
Jason,
yes, go
if I
ahead.
might,
Yeah.
Rick Giroux made an important comment last week or at our last meeting. The context of looking at the special commission report and how it interfaces or works with the city master plan. And if, for example, we're talking about economic development, there are components of the master plan to speak to that. Our charge is to I'll use the term harmonize, if you will, and recommend to council things that we think should move forward based on what's in the master plan and in the special commission report, things that are actionable. And I just wanted to highlight that. So in terms of doing our homework, looking at the sections of the master plan, I think there is a section on equity. I think Jennifer may have circulated, the clerk might have circulated portions that speak to questions of equity and resilience. Thank you, Carol Jackson, for putting together the resource list. So just wanted to point that out in terms of our homework as we're moving toward coming up with that kind of task schedule.
Thank you, Jerry. And just to remind Mike, not being here, one of the things early on we recommended was we called it a work group. I can't remember if it was a committee or work group on the rules and procedures, and then a work group that was specifically focused on looking at those recommendations. But we pulled back on that because folks articulated that they wanted more information. So once I think we get that work group up and running, that's going to be focused on the recommendations, I could see them presenting at these meetings, basically giving recommendations on how, what recommendations to move forward to our standing committees. But that will be resurrected. I think that was the goal. We wanted to take a step back to get that all the data and information that was all shared with you all. I'm not going to ask if you all read it all, but if you haven't, I would particularly dive into the Avery report and the special commission report. Certainly the comp plan, 10-year plan is important, but those two documents, the Avery and the special commission, really dovetail well with each other. Any other discussion on resource materials? Moving on, we are to our open discussion, which I'm grateful we're actually having, which is nice. Is there any comments, open discussion that you want to bring to the next meeting, next agenda? Just want to make sure we've got our takeaways for this evening. Could potentially be a quick meeting, but I am going to, if you indulge me, I'm going to just go down the economic empowerment strategies so you hear them. Jerry, Stephen, anything on your end? Yep.
Going to add to that if.
Yeah, it's a great idea. So Carol, if you can.
I think that is Councilmember Shealy on his way to appointing a replacement for Mr. Dosh?
I asked him, basically said, if you know somebody, please let us know. And if you don't, we can certainly reach out through our network out in West Ashley and ask. And he has not responded. So he said he would work on it, but that's all I know. So we are missing one commission member, I believe, at this point.
Well, two. We've never had one.
And Councilman Parker hasn't appointed, but I can follow up with her on that. Yes, so we have on our work, and I don't have the list in front of me, on our work group for the basically evaluating and looking at all the special recommendations. It's Carol, if you could. Right. And just again, like I mentioned before, full transparency, Elvin's out of town. Just want to let you all know where he is. Elvin, myself, and Carol. Would anyone like else to be part of that group? All right. Awesome. Thank you, Carol. You don't have to volunteer for any. We got 2 right now. We'll have additional subgroups to work on. So if you can't do it right now, that's perfectly fine. Any other open discussion?
Jason,
Yes.
at our last meeting, we did suggest that the relaxation of the 5-month timetable for delivering a set of recommendations on moving forward with the recommendations from the Special Commission report.
Yes.
I understand there is potentially an ordinance to amend the existing ordinance, the
Yep.
current ordinance, to remove that 5-month, to change the language slightly. Can you tell us what the status of that is?
Yeah, that amendment was shared with me by our legal counsel. My guess is I will follow up with them, but it should come back to our next council meeting, which is, so we'll make sure it gets on the agenda then, 13th of September. But I'll follow up with them, but they did share the language. Did I not share that with you, Jerry?
You did.
Okay.
I'm just trying to be transparent, Jason.
We should share that language with our commission. So that's a good point before we disperse. So since Miss Johnson left and before Miss Swinton got here, Jerry, myself, Carol, Elvin, we're really doing a lot of the logistical, operational coordinating work. I'm happy that Miss Swinton's on board. A lot of this is really going to get put on to your lap in terms of coordinating some of these efforts. I would highly encourage, for sending emails and communications that Ms. Swinton's and Adrian's included in those and copied on those. But you're going to essentially be the tip of the spear here. And I know I've got full faith in your abilities to do it. So Jerry, you and I are going to not take a step back, but we aren't going to be the coordinating body here. So Adrian, thank you for that. Yeah. One of the things I did share with Adrian, and she's already on it, is just the communication. I think we're going to see an improvement on the communication piece. If we're not up to speed and informed on what's happening, and certainly the community is not going to be up and informed. So Adrian, it's a big task, but I know that's going to get done. I feel very, very good about that. Anything else for open discussion this evening? Carol and then Bob?
Yes, I want to bring a subject up, and I know that this might be controversial, but I went back and looked at the YouTube video for the last commission meeting before it was presented to the council. And, I had some questions about, well, how did this happen and it get to the commission and council? And then there was concerns about some of the things that were there. And right, with the words. And so I believe that we need to have a discussion about the fact that there was this issue, and certainly it was because there were people who were concerned about what was there. I think we need to talk about that at the beginning of this process rather than at the end of this process.
So are you recommending we add that to the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Can you just get with me and I'm not gonna say me? Can you get with Adrian, Jerry and myself on language for that agenda item? And we're happy to add it to the agenda.
Yes.
Thank you, Carol.
Yeah, because I just believe that, it's better for us to, talk about that and do it up front and not let something linger until the end and say, well, wait a minute, I didn't realize that was going to be an issue. Okay. Yeah, for me, I had not been paying attention at all, and then my only interaction with the council had been on the possibility of taxes being raised, property taxes being raised during COVID. And but COVID changed a lot of things. Right. And so but I do believe it'll be to our benefit. I believe that we all want to move forward. There was a lot of great work that was done there, and we want to have a unified approach in moving forward and be prepared, you know, for whatever will come down the road. So, yeah, I think that would be a good thing for us to deal with early.
Agreed.
And maybe also.
Can you use your mic?
The clear opposition that council experienced during the time that the report was delivered, not accepted, not received, whatever the action was supposed to have been at the end of last summer, all the way through redrafting an ordinance to establish this permanent commission that we're part of now. So we had council meetings where the public turned out in great number and, you know, sort of kept that set of arguments or discussion points going. So I do think that we should be ready to understand the emotional pull that there is on parts of this community, bringing these topics into the public realm again. So I salute you. I think that's a good idea.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Carol. And Bob, you had your hand up.
Just a mundane request. I see more and more paperwork. Is there a spare binder I could grab?
I think we can get some name tags and a binder.
Yeah.
Certainly, yeah. You've got, if you printed up everything that we sent you, you're probably walking around with a stack that's that big. I do want to just quickly acknowledge before I do read some of these economic empowerment recommendations or strategies. Carol, thank you for your comments tonight. We're all coming from a different place, different workplace, different life experience. But I do appreciate folks walking into this room and opening this door with an open heart and open mind. We're not going to agree on everything. Let's be clear on that. We're not going to agree on everything. But it's helpful for us to acknowledge, to Carol's point, there are some elephants in the room, right? There's things in the room that we need to address. And I think we just need to meet them head on. And I think we have the task at hand. And I think the folks around the room are serious enough and we will get it done. So just want to, if you could indulge me, the economic empowerment strategies and recommendations, just want to share with you just some of the language that was used and a little bit about the strategies. This was number one long-term goal, improve access to capital for Black-owned businesses in Charleston. The objective would be provide funding to 300 new Black-owned businesses to become sustainable and viable over a 5-year period, as well as existing Black-owned businesses. Long-term goal number 2, reduce the Black income poverty rate by 10% over 10 years and increase Black assets, home and business ownership by 20% over the next 20 years. Long-term goal number 3, create a formal mechanism to ensure Black-owned businesses have an opportunity to pursue and secure government projects. The objective there was to support Black businesses' development, startup, and expanding existing businesses. Long-term goal number 4, create a system by which the city will be held accountable to ensure it continues to move equity, inclusion, and racial conciliation forward. That seems like a broad long-term goal, but let's pay attention to those first 3. I just want to mention those. The city's already started on the path of opening a small business incubator specifically focused on Black-owned businesses. So the point is that I'm making is some of this work is already in the pipeline, and the recommendations, although they're here, have already gone from paper to action. So I want to make sure folks that are listening are aware that the recommendations haven't been sitting on a shelf. We have anecdotally and formally moved some of these to committee. Before you all got in here tonight, we were talking about BAR regulations north of Line Street. If that didn't bore you to death, but they're important and I want to mention those. The reason we're having that discussion, and it speaks directly to this, is because for many years, it was adopted in 2017, BAR's purview north of Line Street really has created a situation where, and it's not just a racial issue, we'll call it middle income folks that live on the peninsula that perhaps lived in their home for 20, 30 years and want to make a repair on their roof or change a window, have had to go through a long, arduous process to get BAR approval. So
Jason, what's BAR?
Board of Architectural Review.
Thank you.
I've only been a council member for 2 years and I'm using too many acronyms.
There
So,
you go. Thank you, brother.
BIR has purview north of line, but BIR is also in our city has really been a wonderful thing for us as well. We are an historic city. Preservation is an important piece. My point is that in north of Line Street, I feel like it has extended itself and the balance has gone a little bit too far over. The point I'm making though is if you're a homeowner that's on fixed income and needs to repair a roof or needs to replace a window, and that roof is being requested or required to be a metal roof, that's 3 times the cost of an asphalt roof. Or if you have to repair the windows and the window repair, particularly during COVID, is a year out for the repair, and 2 times the cost of a replacement window, which doesn't have to be a vinyl window. For all those that are listening on the preservation side, it could be a wood window. The thoughts and concerns that we're sharing with our planning department, the preservation community, is we just need to be more practical and remember that people are actually living in those homes. I think that issue resonates with all of us, but has disproportionately affected the African Americans on the peninsula and has exacerbated gentrification. It's not the only reason, but it has definitely exacerbated. I've got 4 constituents that owned homes and basically gave up through the process and moved. 2 of them were African American, 2 of them were Caucasian. But the point is, I see that issue embedded in the work of the special commission. And I think we all can rally around those things. And hopefully we can find of those 125 recommendations, things that we're all agreeing upon. And I think we will. I think by and large, we will rally around some key recommendations. Of course, there's going to be, to Carol's point, there's going to be some that we're going to disagree on, and that's fine. So I just wanted to share that point tonight and resonate and the relevancy of the conversation that you walked into today. So thank you all for indulging me. Carol.
Yeah, I want to affirm that's a great example. And I did listen to the community development meeting on my way here. And what I'm thrilled that that topic is, moving its way through to be amended with the way that the Board of Architectural Review does their job. But what I really resonated with that was the way that our planning director, Robert Summerfield, was so, it was clear that he and his staff have given this a lot of thought, and he was making it very, very clear to the council members who were deliberating about this, that for the first time, we're not looking at properties as objectively as the pure, historic residences that Charleston has long been careful and jealous to protect. That it was a lot more than just the wood structures themselves. It was the neighborhood, the community, the culture. And he wasn't just saying those words. I could tell because I was on the phone, so I couldn't see his face, but I could tell that he was actually, saying things because he had paid attention, done his homework. And that's why we think that the master plan, the city plan, goes to great lengths to bring that economic, the new realities into view too. So I would recommend that as we go through this, that you at least read the housing piece of the master plan and the economic equity piece, because both of those dovetail and grew out of what the work that the commission was doing.
Thank you, Carol. Well
Yeah.
said. And for those that are listening that are in the preservation community, which maybe they're not, I just want to be clear and preface, I'm not suggesting that BAR has no presence north of line, that BAR has no presence in our city. In fact, the tourists in the world renowned come here for our architectural beauty. So I'm not suggesting that. All I'm saying is the policy is a bit weighted, impractical in that part of town. So, but that's just one example of a structural thing that we've got in place that's on the books, and that if no one asks questions, a lot of folks just either give up or they move. So, any other discussion on that or anything else for this evening? Well, I do want to say thank you, Mike, for joining us tonight. Bonnie, thank you. I'm trying to get anyone new. Thank Victoria. Thank you for coming tonight. Adrian, welcome aboard. And with that, I'd like to hear a motion to adjourn.
Second.
The motion to adjourn was properly seconded. All in favor of adjourning? Any nays? All right, the ayes have it, and we are officially adjourned. Thank you all.